Now that we've generated the UV map on which to place the texture that will serve as the label for the bottle, we're going to create a PSD separate in which to make the graphic content. So I'll go to File New or hit Command N, and let's make a file that's 6 by 6 inches, and I'll make the resolution 250. And in here we'll create that file. Now I want to sample the color as a background element. So selecting that template that is now on our model, I'll hit I on the keyboard and I'll select that brown. And I'll fill this background with that color. And the reason that we're doing this is the whole premise of this ad is that it is an eco-friendly product, using eco-friendly containers that will decompose when put in a natural environment. And this is the trend that seems to be taking place. You probably know from your grocery stores now you can't use plastic bags. There's paper, or you provide your own cloth bags. So this is kind of the consciousness that we're seeing in design, and just as global citizens we need to be aware of. So that brown represents the color of the bottle without a dye. So you cannot deviate from this color. You'll also notice that the label is pretty minimal as far as the colors that are being applied. Many of the inks today are still toxic, and once again this ad is driven towards a vision of where design and where the environment perhaps will be going pretty quickly. I've got the color I want, and now I'm going to design that label. Now, as I recall with our tutorial, we set up some guides here to kind of define the parameters of this to get started. So make sure your rules are up, and you can go to View and you'll see rulers, or you can hit Command R if you like keyboard quicks. And with my Move tool, I'll hit V, and I'm going to drag a guide in. I'll put one at maybe ½ inch all the way around. With the guides in place, now we'll add a new layer to start making the label. I'll hit M on the keyboard, and I'm going to use the elliptical marquee. Holding down the Option and Shift, I'll place my cursor in the center of my document at 3 inches and 3 inches. And I'll click and drag an ellipse out to the guides, and I'll move it into position. Now I want to put a stroke on this. And we're going to use a green that's similar to what we see in the ad. Again, green, organic, natural. The advertising has to really imply what the intent of this eco-friendly packaging is all about. And in the process, the purchaser feels good about what they're doing. I'm going to go to the color picker, and let's change our red to 60, our green to 184. And let's make the blue 120. And I'll click OK. And if I'm still on my marquee now, I can right click and choose stroke. I'm going to set the stroke to 20 pixels on the inside, and I'll click OK. And I'll deselect and hit Command S to save. Now if we look at the ad, there's a second ring. I'm going to hit W on the keyboard, and I'll go to my magic wand tool, and I'll click on the inside. Add a new layer. Command-Shift-N. If I go from my wand tool to my marquee tool, I can now right-click inside, and I'll see the option to transform selection. Holding down the Option key, I'll click and drag in a smaller ring. Now this is also very subjective because of the font you may be using for the text for this. Once I have the size I want, I'll right-click and choose Stroke, and I'll apply the stroke to that. Command D to deselect, Command S to save. Now I'm going to merge these two down, and I can do so by hitting Command E or going to the upper right hand corner of the layer window, and towards the bottom you'll see Merge Down. I'm going to put an outer glow on this to make it pop a little bit. I want it to look kind of like perhaps a woodcut. So I'll double click, and I'll go to Outer Glow. And because I want it to be kind of a wood cut, I'm going to make sure that it's black. And I'll make the opacity maybe 50 for now. And then I'll go down and I'll increase the spread. And I think maybe I'll make the spread 15. And I'll make the size 15. And I'm going to put a little noise on this, and in doing so it's going to look a little bit more organic. If we look at the ad, you can see that it's got that tree bark that we're going to be placing on the texture when we get to doing the 2D component to this advertisement. And this kind of adds to that organic feel that the bark has got. Now we're going to get the apple. Opening our file, you'll see cderapple.jpg. And first thing I'll do is select out the background, hitting W on the keyboard. I'm going to go to the quick select brush, holding down Shift and hitting W, or clicking on the tool and choosing the quick select. I'll put my cursor over the white background of the apple to see what size the brush might be. I'll click and drag in a very broad way around the background element. Once I have the selection, I'll invert it, Command-Shift-I, or I can go to Select, Inverse at the top, Command-C to copy, and then I'm going to place this inside the label that we've just started to generate, and I'll save that. It's going to go into the center. Now, in accordance with the tutorial, I'm going to reduce it to a graphic element and take out the color and then apply a tint. The apple's selected. I'll go to the black and white cookie at the bottom of the layer window and I'll choose black and white. Make sure that in the properties window you've selected the white box at the bottom of the properties window to isolate the change to the apple itself and not the green rings. I'll immediately merge that down hitting Command-E. And now I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to convert it to a smart object. Next I'll go to Filter, Filter Gallery. In Filter Gallery, I'm going to choose Posterize. Posterize is inside the Artistic folder. Once I've got that, I'll go and make some adjustments to this. Now, the lower the posterized number, the more graphic the element becomes. I guess I'll set it for 1. I've set the edge intensity for 1. Oh, let's set the thickness for 1 as well. And I'll click OK. Now I've got the graphic content I'd like this to reflect, and all I need to do is tint that. I'll start by holding down the Command key and clicking on the thumbnail of the apple on its layer. It'll give me the marching ants around the perimeter of the shape. I'll now add a new blank layer. Command-Shift-N, or if you choose, you can use the layer window to do so. I'll go to my color picker, and I just need to confirm I've got the same color as I did with the rings. And if I go to my swatch window, I can see that at the top of the swatch window, the very first green I see was the one that was applied here as well. So once I've confirmed that, I'm going to fill that blank layer with the green, with the paint bucket, which is G, or Option Delete on the keyboard. I'm going to deselect and save. Now I'm going to look for a blend mode that'll give me what I'm looking for. Now if I'm on my Move tool, I can hold the Shift key and hit plus or minus to quickly go through the blend mode. I'm going to start with Overlay. Now you could have also clicked with your left mouse and dragged over with your left mouse to preview the different blend modes. So however you choose to arrive at this blend mode is perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and merge that down as well. So I'll Shift Select and hit Command-E on the keyboard. If I need to, I'll rename that Apple and I'll save. So we've got the graphics set up the way we want. The next thing we're going to do is add our text. To add our text, I'm going to hit U on the keyboard. It'll take me to the Bezier tools in Photoshop. I'm choosing the ellipse, and in the upper left-hand corner of the interface, I want to make sure it's set for path. I'll hold down the Option and the Shift, click in the center, and drag out a ring that goes just beyond the smaller inside green ring for our background. I'll hit T on the keyboard, and I'm going to hit the cap lock. I've set my font for Myriad Pro Bold. Now you might have another font in mind. You're welcome to use whatever you might have. Again, the workflow is the important component here. I'll click on the path and I'll type in Ciderhouse Rules. And if I need to change the size of it, I'll hit Command A and I'll change it via the option window at the top, or I can hold down Command Shift and use the period on the keyboard to increase the size of it. And you just want to fill that area between those two rings pretty nicely. Again, the size, if you want, I've chosen about 40. And now I'm going to set that and I'll hit Command S to save. Now, in order to see this a little bit more clearly, I'm going to add the same outer glow that I did for the ring. So I'll double click on the gray of the layer or go down to FX and choose outer glow. And the settings should be pretty much the same. I'll click OK and now I'll save it. Now, in the ad, what we need to do is change rules to be underneath. So Ciderhouse will be on top and rules will be on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'll duplicate that layer by hitting Command J, and I'll turn off the original just so there's no confusion when we're looking at this. And now I'm going to hit T on the keyboard and I'll click inside and I'll delete the word Ciderhouse. And now I'm going to get my arrow tool by hitting A. And this is a little bit clumsy with Photoshop, but if you take your cursor and put it down towards the foot of the word rules, you'll see a little I beam and a black arrow or triangle. If I click on that and drag to the right, it puts the text on the inside of the circle. Now if I wanted to, I could hit Command T, and I'll begin to rotate that into position. I'll go back to my text tool, and with my text tool I'm going to select it, and I'm going to change the spacing on this. You'll see it's kind of ganged up, but I'm going to go to the little white page icon next to the T that's on an arc here, and that will give me the character window, and in there I'll change the spacing between those. And it was set for -25. I'll start with 0. Still a little tight, so for me I'll probably go ahead and make that maybe 25. Next I'm going to turn on the word Ciderhouse rules, and I'm going to take a few moments to tweak this so it's somewhat centered the way I want it to be, and then when I come back we'll continue. Now that I have the label tweaked the way I want, I'm going to copy paste it into the UV map that'll be wrapped around the bottle itself. I'll turn off the background element. I'll select all, hitting Command A, and I'll copy paste with everything except that background. So I could go to Edit, Copy Merged, or Command Shift C. Going to the label, hit Command V to paste. Then you should have something like this. So let's scale that down and put it in the general area of the green reference you're seeing there. With the label in place now, I'm going to put another brown layer between the art, which will be our labels, and the UV map. I don't want to obliterate that UV map because I need that for reference still. So I'll add a new layer, and hitting I on the keyboard, I'll select out the brown again, and Option Delete, and save it. Now if we look closely at the original ad, you'll notice there's a red background here. So in order to create that, I'm putting in a new layer. And I've put two guides, a vertical and a horizontal, and it's based on the position of the green logo we pasted in. So if you're on your Move tool and you've chosen Show Transforms Controls, you'll see the center point of that logo now located where the guides intersect. And that's going to give us a reference point in which to introduce the red background that we're going to create. So with the new layer selected, I'll hit M on the keyboard, I'll hold down the Option and the Shift, and I'll click on the intersection of the guides and drag out. I'll go a bit beyond the perimeter of the green logo, and this is pretty subjective. And now I'm going to choose a red. Now I'm going to choose a red from the original label that appears in the tutorial here. Now that I've got the base color of the red, I'm going to select it. I'll make it a little bit darker. And if you wanted to follow along with the same settings, I'm making my red 251, the green 113, and the blue 108. And now I'll fill that with that red, and I'll save it. Now if we look closely at the finish, you'll see there's actually a band that goes through this as well. We're going to use the rounded rectangle tool to create that. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to hit U on the keyboard, and it'll take me to the rounded rectangle tool. I'll click and drag anywhere in the document window, and once I do, it introduces the properties window, and that's going to allow me to make some changes. Let's make the width of this 900 pixels. We'll make the height 250, and I'm going to make the rounded edges of that rectangle, each of them 100. And once I do, it will alter the proportions for me. I'll close out the properties window, and I'll hit Command T. That'll allow me to put that into position at the intersection of the guides where we've placed our logo and our red circle. I'll now right-click once I've set that by hitting Return, and making sure that I'm on either the pen tool or the rounded rectangle. I'll right-click and choose Make Selection. I'll click OK and choose Option Delete to fill it. Command D